I think we are ready to start getting closer to our talks. And let me introduce you to our first speaker, Karl. Karl, please come and speak.
All right. Sweet. All right. All right. Let's connect it up.
Yeah, everything is connected, so we should work. So
Cool.
Karl is the first design engineer at DuckDuckGo. That's crazy, isn't it? So,
Still the only as well. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, while we wait for that to happen, who's heard of DuckDuckGo? Anybody? Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. Let me just, what are we doing here? Entire screen's fine. Oh, come on. There we go. Cool. And while we're here as well, who is already a design engineer, or whatever you want to call it? All right. Okay, cool. So this talk's going to be a little bit about kind of what design engineering is for me at DuckDuckGo, but also just more generally, like what does it mean to be a design engineer at a company, and especially to be the only one, because kind of treading untrodden paths here, figuring out what it means for me. So the start of this, I guess, design engineering for me came about from this idea of the handoff problem. I think we've probably all been there. If you're a designer anyway, you've put together a bunch of designs, you've thought about all this stuff with great detail. You've mocked up 300 different frames, hoping that someone cares enough to make it look just like you want it to, right? But what we end up seeing is maybe not quite there, or it's missing all of these kind of finer details, the finesse, the care and the attention to the detail between state changes or different interaction types. And we can kind of solve that by creating this role. So one of the problems that can often happen at these organizations, this has been me many times, and anyone here who is already a design engineer or something like that probably has heard this, that you're the person who can design and code. And so now you're like immediately this double personality, right? Which organizationally can be a bit of a difficulty because you're hard to place. Like, where do you sit in the organization? Are you in the design team? Are you in the engineering team? When you sit there, like, how do you behave? Like, do you start with design and then build stuff? Do you start coding and then maybe end up in Figma? Like, where do you behave? Where do you belong? And then also, what do you call yourself? Like, I mean, there'll be people here who are design technologists, people that are UX engineers, if you worked at Google as UI engineers, creative developers. And then probably there's a bunch of people here, to some degree, who are a product designer. But in brackets, I'll also do whatever it takes. I don't know if that feels familiar. But the problem with all of this stuff is that we're basically describing the tools. We're not describing the purpose of what you do. And design engineering is more than just what the tools are that you use. It's actually an organizational position. So it's not necessarily just about skill set. It's about finding a place to stand and belong in the organization. And that place is between two positions that have been kind of, I guess, within the organization for, 20, 30 years at this point. And there's a lot of ambiguity that happens, and you are living in that ambiguity. And so you're trying to help navigate, like, how does a design turn into the engineering end solution? And typically that's just not a thing that's normally existed. And so you're also kind of really in this gap where traditionally quality ends up dying, because people just don't have the care or the attention on the engineering side. No offense to engineers, love you all. But it's just true, right? You've got different priorities, different focuses, and so you don't always have the time to care about the little finesse and the little details. And if we actually look to other organizations, just like product design got transitioned from this like physical world of building products, the same is true for design engineering. If you look in any physical organization, there's a good chance if they're building hardware products, they have this role called a design engineer, and it's someone who lives in a tool called CAD, and they spend all their time translating design intent into engineering reality, figuring out like, this is what someone wants, this is how it can physically get done. I'm gonna help figure out that bit in the middle that helps to just bridge these two worlds that don't understand each other. And like I said, quality is what dies in the handoff. And so every company at this point has designers, hopefully. Maybe we'll see how that goes. And same is true for engineers. Every company still currently has engineers, but almost none of these companies have somebody who lives in the middle of that closes that gap. And one of the ways I like to think about this again, because I've just heard this so often with people talking about design engineering, is talking about it as if you're this translator, someone who is like, Google Translate and is able to take Spanish and turn it into English or English to Spanish. Like, there is an element of that as a design engineer in an organization. You will be translating people's words into different words to try and help everyone understand what's going on. But the problem is you're always going to lose something along the way. Just like when I try and make something that makes sense in Spanish, makes sense to someone in English, they never sound quite the same. It never has the same feeling, the same emotion. And so really, your goal is to try and make translation unnecessary. Now, what does that kind of look like? I've seen some of the talks from this before, and some people have shown some pretty awesome stuff. I'm going to prepare you now. I work on stuff that is shipping to production regularly on a search engine. And so there's a ton of limitations as to the excitement that I can bring to a search engine, right? So don't expect some kind of super flashy linear-like design. This is going to be working with what I got. So bear with me. Now, I've self-quoted myself twice in this presentation, so I do apologize. But I thought they were quite good quotes, so I went with it. So the way that I like to think about design engineering is, if you went to an architect and they were like, hey, I've got no idea how physics works, and you were like, okay, cool, but can you build me a house anyway? And they're like, yeah, I'll give it a go. How much trust would you put in that person, right? If they don't understand how to make a building stand up and the physics behind that, are you going to trust them? Because I wouldn't. And I think the same is true here for design and building stuff. Like, we can come up with this great concept, this great idea, and we can have people who know how to build something close to this. But if you are designing with this intent of like, I'm going to make this magical thing, and you have no idea how this is going to get built, like, what's that conversation look like? And design engineers are very kind of perfect for helping to bridge that conversational gap. And looking at reality and thinking about process, this probably maybe is a familiar territory. So this is how I used to work. I think this is how a lot of people will work still, which is we start in Figma, we put together these pixel perfect frames, we think really carefully about the deliverable and the like polishing and trying to finesse the details and like get all the radius right. Maybe you decide that you want to put a load of annotations on there for somebody and you're like, yeah, someone will read this and care. And then you hand it over into the abyss and kind of hope somebody's maybe going to read all the stuff. Maybe they're going to ship it in the way that you intended. And then it shows back up and you're like, it's there. It's maybe we're like 80%, but the reality doesn't feel as exciting or as good as I'd hoped. That's fine. Like, that is how some organizations have to run. But I think the difference that you can have if you move towards this design engineering role, if you aren't one already, is you can start to think more differently about how you use your tools. Some of you may already be doing this. We can maybe do another show of hands. Anyone who is design engineering in a company currently, how often do you start in Figma? Put your hands up if you do. All right. There's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 people. And how many of you start in the code base? All right, even split, pretty much. Yeah, a little bit more. All right. And I think that's going to be true more and more, that we're going to be basically treating these two tools as like interchangeable. So rather than trying to follow this linear process, by being a design engineer, being someone who can be in both places at any time, you're able to flip back and forth depending on what the fidelity is that you need, what you actually care deeply about. Please turn your phones off. That's fine. But you can use the tool that's best for the job, right? And we stop being so hyper-focused on like from here to here to here to here, and instead we say like, oh, I'm going to be in the code base for a bit. I'm going to diddle in here, like go back into Figma, try and figure out something, scratch around, play around, come back, go back, go back, go back. And you end up delivering a lot faster. It sounds like it's a slower process maybe because you're going back and forth between these things, but actually the speed at which you can work is accelerated massively. And obviously with everyone's favorite new thing, AI, you can move even quicker. Now, here's just an example of something fun. This is easing. Now, probably something very familiar to people, right? You can have an easing curve, and things move, and they behave differently depending on the type of ease you pick. The reason I'm showing this is because with easing, you can go chat to your favorite friend, Claude or Cursor or whatever you want to talk to, and say, hey, build me something. building this thing, and the interaction, I press a button, and something grows out of that button, and I want you to make it animate, make it look nice. And chances are you'll end up with a linear ease, or maybe if you're lucky, you might get an ease out of it. And in principle, that's totally cool. It works. But the reality is, like, when you really dig into the details of what makes animation great, it's the nuance. It's the focus on, like, what is the intent of this thing that I'm building, and where is it placed? How big is it? What's around it? There's all of these different behavioral mechanics that we need to account for. And so just blindly trusting AI to, like, maybe figure it out, you're going to end up with something that feels kind of robotic or slow or mechanical, instead of something that has a bit more playfulness, a bit more delight, a bit more fun. And here's like an example of that in practice. So this is on my personal website. Yes, I do release music. Don't listen to it unless you like metal. Up to you. Or do. Maybe you'll get into metal. But this was a tool that I built, basically, or a shelf, I call it, the shelf. And you can see as I move my mouse over this shelf, I can kind of drift across a bunch of these and nothing happens, right? Whee, nothing happens. And then hang for a little bit longer and something shows up, and then I can kind of make these moves. So this is what's known as velocity gating. And again, this is one of those things that I think in practice, like, you could ask AI to build this, and I did, originally. Thanks, Claude. And it gave me a good starting point, I'll be honest. It was pretty good. But the thing that it missed is this velocity gating. And so what I found was I was like running my mouse over the thing, trying to just make one thing show up, and it's like 17 albums all flying everywhere. And it just made it impossible to actually use. And so by just thinking with that mindset, that engineering mindset of like, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? Well, I want people to be able to mouse over a thing and not have everything flying up all the time, because, you know, these things are quite close together and you've got to try and get in. And so, you know, you spend some time, you think about it, and you take that knowledge of design engineering and you're able to apply something like this where it actually interacts in a way that feels a bit more natural, so you can pick things out of a shelf. Pretty cool. I don't know. And I think in reality, just to kind of pull on that one, having that skill set and that knowledge and that way of being able to talk to either to AI or just being able to deal with a code base allows you to, again, move quickly in a way that other people within the organization can't move. I've put here like the old hovering creative director. For any of you who have worked in design for a long time, that will be a familiar phrase. For other people, maybe not, I don't know. But the idea of somebody hanging over the back of you, watching you. I had this exact experience in my real job. So at DuckDuckGo, I was working on animating the AI module that I work on, which gives you a little AI summary. You'll see some examples in a minute. And we had a whole debate in real time over, so we're an async organization, so I was working with people in the US, but we're just chatting back and forth on Asana, like, hey, don't like this animation, like, doesn't look cool. And I'm like, okay, cool, CEO, thank you for that. Let me have a look at it. And what I was able to do is move quickly and say, hey, you know, like, that's fine. What do you think about this? Boom, push to dev. Here's a new version on the dev instance. Do you like that? No, I don't like it. Okay, fine. All right. Here's a new one. All right, cool. What about this one? No. Eventually we got there. And I'm going to show you some stuff. Sorry. It probably looks terrible, so apologies in advance. But here's 4 things. So these were things like, these are real time, just figuring it out, right? This was before I could use Claude to figure out half of this stuff to make my life easier. So some of it looks horrendous, like the blurs and the things. But anyway, it gets the point across. Like, these are just different variations of the same concept of like, how do we reveal an answer once it's been generated? Do we even care about that? And so we tried a bunch of different versions, and I was able to, within an hour, 2 hours, put these suggestions together, put them in front of people and say, what do we think? And by the end of it, we decided that we hated all of it and we should sack the project off and just show the answer like it was before. So, you know, was it time well spent? I think so. And I think what that leads us to is this idea of taste. I'm just going to, my screen's decided to dim, I apologize. Taste is the thing that we can't automate, I think. And those examples there give you an idea, because like those, I mean, they weren't me being very tasteful, but still, maybe the shelf example with the vinyl's a better example of that. But the thing that AI will do for us is going to help us speed up all of our workflows, but I don't think it's going to change how we can deal with taste. And something that I think that design engineers have a unique talent for is being able to find the taste in the details, the difficulties. So let's talk about it a bit. Anyone's going to be shipping now. Okay, actually, on that note, who's experienced this part? With product managers, CAOs, developers, no offense, marketers, anyone else in their organizations shipping stuff with AI? We seeing that? Yeah. I don't think that's a problem. I think we can be honest about it. Like, they'll be able to ship stuff now, and that's cool. It accelerates some projects, and some projects are good for that. The reality is, they can ship stuff, but they don't have taste. No offense, again. They don't have the same taste as us. And so what's left for design engineers, like if anyone can ship, if anyone can just take AI and do whatever they want with it, like why do you need to exist? Why do I need to exist? I hope I need to exist. Knowing why something works, I think is an important reason. So a design engineer can build stuff, think about stuff, and understand the why behind the problem and the why behind the work. Like, why when I press this button does this thing behave this way? Because that's how I designed it. And I can go into the code base, I can manipulate the code, I can talk to Claude, or I can just go and do it myself. But I think also it teaches you a lot, or the importance of knowing why it doesn't work. You know, if someone wants to challenge an idea as a design engineer, you understand why it doesn't work, why we shouldn't ship the idea. Sorry. Knowing why the final 10% matters. Again, I think this is where, at least in my experience, design engineers end up coming in most projects, is that final 10% of like, how do we take this design and we take it to 110%, 100%, instead of trying to figure out how we can like lop stuff off on the roadmap. And I think design engineers are also uniquely talented at figuring out what to build next. What's the next challenge that we try and solve for? And how can we do it? So, example of that. This is the module I work on. This is a little bit more evolved from the last version you saw. I have a Siberian cat, by the way. That's probably why I was asking these questions. So the one on the left is with reduced motion enabled. So there's absolutely no animation states whatsoever. You just see stuff happen. On the right-hand side, you'll see that there is a bunch of stuff going on. There's a little gradient that spins around whilst it's thinking about what's going on. You've got the dots happening, the text is changing. If you look really closely and carefully, when it appears, all the buttons in the top right slowly animate in one after another. The buttons below the answer also grow and scale from the middle. There is so much happening in this tiny little module, and it's also the only thing on our search engine that does anything remotely interesting like this. Everything else is very basic and flat, because it needs to be and quick, right? These are all deliberate decisions, because for somebody waiting for something to happen, we need to show you something. We can't stream the answer at this point. And so we need to try and find a delightful way to show it. And so that's what we tried to do with this particular piece. And so that's the sort of thing, like I said, that you can't easily automate away. And again, look, I quoted myself. This is the second one. Because AI can't teach you taste or judgment, the ability to look at something and know why it works. So that's the whole job. Here's another example. I realize I'm probably burning my time here. I'm going to show you in 0.25% speed. But this is a clip path animation that we added. Now this is a project that I worked on where we wanted to add images to certain answers. And to do so, we had to add this horrible copyright button, which was like the worst news when I saw that come in. And so I wanted to make the experience of opening and closing that button just a tiny bit more interesting than just showing the whole thing instantly. So we ended up adding this little clip path animation so you can see that like it grows. The button transforms into the dialogue that shows the content rather than just showing up and closing and what have you. Again, like most people don't even click that button, but for me, it mattered to take that time just to put that little bit of detail in. Here's another example. Like this is when we show some explore more answers. And if I slow it down, you'll see that like we stage the appearance of every single element in this. So originally, the engineer that built this showed it to me, and when it appeared, everything just went bang, all at once, and it just felt weird. It felt like inorganic, inhuman. So we just added this simple sequencing, and like instantly this whole thing, you know, in full speed just felt a little bit more friendly, a bit more delightful, a bit more interesting. And so I think the answer here as well is that AI makes design engineers more valuable, not less. I definitely had a period of time where I thought that like, oh, we've introduced AI, so like I'm screwed, right? I'm gonna lose my job. Why am I useful? Designers can just ship, so. But I think the reality is like judgment is the key here. Like as designers, you can definitely ship code, like for sure. But I think there is a difference between someone who understands the why behind it and how behind it versus just being able to just blindly trust. And so in my opinion, the scarce resource that you have, that skill set, has just shifted in your direction as a design engineer. So don't think of it like a Venn diagram with two overlapping roles where you're kind of sitting in the middle of it. I would say think of it more as a full organizational position that sits between these two organizations, that cares deeply about the details and trying to figure out how all these things map together. And so let's deliver this. The discomfort and ambiguity isn't a weakness, it's the skill. And so design engineering is a mindset and a toolkit. Vibe coding, it is not. And vibe coding is fine, by the way, but different thing altogether. And so the overlap is not a problem to solve, but it's actually the whole job. So if you aren't a design engineer already, I'm just going to shill my course for a second. I built a course, and this course is just basically all about the details, trying to understand the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but also design, SwiftUI, Android, anything you want. I basically spent the time learning all of these platforms, building for them, and trying to make it easy for people to basically learn the same things. So if you want to go get it, it's there, design engineering. Buy it, I guess, you know, cool. Help me out, give me some money.
Do we get a discount, is it, or not?
Sure.
Yay.
We'll figure out a discount and we'll include it in something. That's it. I think maybe it made sense. I don't know. All right.
Let's do
Told you.
2 questions,
Go on.
and you choose who you want to.
Oh, I choose. Oh, jeez. All right. 2 questions. All right. Question number 1. Let's go. Hat.
What's your favorite eating?
Favorite easing?
Yeah.
Oh, cubic Bezier. Some kind of custom Bezier would be my favorite. Spending some time tuning the details on that. Easing.dev, best website ever, if you want to try and do that. Stephen.
How do you feel like you justify, okay, you just had like more animation,
Yeah.
that one success. How do you feel like you justify
The time,
spent on doing that?
because it doesn't take me any longer than anyone else, right? It's just the knowledge, right? That's what the point I'm trying to get at. It's like if you've got someone who's just like their role is to do that thing, like that is just part of the skill set. And design engineers are uniquely positioned to be able to deliver from design all the way through to shipping. And so you just bake that in. That's just part of your process. Like I know when I'm leading a project, because of the way we do things at DuckDuckGo, we lead our own projects. Like I just say, like that's going to take me 5 minutes. Well, no, it's not. It's going to take me like an hour, like whatever. Cool. Like just include it in the timeline and get it shipped. Easy peasy. Final one.
I'm curious, you said you're the only design engineer.
Yes.
What does the rest of the team look like? Are you helping with designers?
Yes. Yeah. So there's 25 designers, I think, at the moment. So I'm the only design engineer just because I pushed for that position, and I've been shipping to production for most of my time at DuckDuckGo. But it's a thing that we're trying to build. So it's an organizational discipline that I think we're probably going to end up increasing over time. Because we've seen value in having somebody who sits in that intersection.
Did you transition from engineering or product?
Oh, from design, yeah. So I joined as a designer officially, but my background has very much been mixed, and they knew that coming in, and so we kind of just played with it, and eventually they were like, cool. I made a big case for it. Pavan actually, who works here, over in the distance, recorded a video with me on how I managed to get the role positioned in DuckDuckGo. So go check out his YouTube channel. Plug. Yeah.
Did you show them that deck? I wonder.
What, this deck?
Yeah. When
No.
you no, it wasn't that. Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you, Karl.
Thank you. All right.